Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this very interesting knife right here. This is the G&G Hawk Deadlock. First off, though, in the name of full disclosure, I want to thank the Hawks for selling me this knife specifically. I talked to them, and they sold it to me. I did pay, money and whatnot, so it's not a freebie or anything. But yeah, that's what's going on here. So we have to assume that this was the very best quality controlled deadlock ever being sent to me, and I've tried not to let the fact that I was able to get one of these guys cloud my review judgment. I also want to thank my buddy John, who made this possible by saying, hey, Nick, if you get a deadlock, I'll buy it off you for what you paid. Makes it real easy to get a deadlock. So there you go. Next thing, size comparison here. This is a big freaking knife here. First off, Spyderco Delica. Yep. Ontario rat number 2, and your rat number 1 is over here someplace. Here we go. So you can see very, very large blade here. Here it is against another very murdery knife, the ZTO 452CF. And then let's do a quick blade length measurement here. I mean, we're coming in right around 3.5 inches here. Depending on how much the cop likes or dislikes you, you could be at or under 3 or over 3.5. So, keep that one in mind. Next thing, speaking of how much the cop likes or dislikes you, a big part of the reason they might like or dislike you is because this is an automatic knife. Automatic knives, defined as knives generally, well, I'm not a lawyer, check your local statutes and whatnot, but usually, knives where you press something on the handle and the knife deploys without ever contacting the blade. That's a thing, and what that means is that although this automatic knives, that is illegal to carry, for instance, in the state of Michigan, if I drive 40 miles south to Ohio, this is a felony right here. But actually, this one to carry is a felony in Michigan as well because it is it's a double-edged blade here. So this is really, really freaking illegal. And this is why this knife actually hasn't been carried. I didn't carry this outside the house because, well, it wouldn't be legal to do so. So there you go. Then finally, there is no disassembly video for this knife. But actually, that's not entirely true, because there is one. Gavin Hawk did a disassembly video of this knife, and in which he not only takes the knife apart, shows you how to maintain it, but he also walks you through every feature from an engineering standpoint. That's what this is doing, that's what this is doing. It's a really good video. I was watching it, preparing to do my own, then I realized, why would I make somebody watch mine when I'm just going to tell them to watch his? So just watch his. It's a better video than I'd make, so there you go. But that said, it is very disassemblable, even includes the tools. That's excellent. So anyways, let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of the Hawk Knives Deadlock here. So on the good side, first off, grinds on this guy are great. I mean, the blade on the whole is really well done. It's a little bit thicker behind the edge than I imagine the single edge one would be, but at the same time, you know what, it does still cut. And, with a dagger style grind, whatever, it's not really the point, but look at the freaking point on this guy. Speaking of the point, holy cow, is that thing sharp. This is just really, really well made in that domain. So there you go. Next thing, clip on this guy, absolutely good to go. What we can see here is that we've got a very nice little clip here. It's not the articulated Hawk-style clip, which actually I prefer. I prefer that it isn't that way. This just gives you a lot of ramp. It makes it very easy to get into and out of the pocket. It's a solid clip, absolutely good to go. Next thing, the grip on this guy. The ergonomics and the grip are very, very good. I mean, it feels good in the hand, even with my relatively small hands here. And, the clip doesn't provide a hot spot or anything like that. That's excellent. In addition, you've got these little areas here, this sort of, the finger grooves, if you'd like, that work very well, actually, in either hand. No freaking problem. And even, I imagine, would be a little better for somebody with bigger hands than I do. But you've also got these plates on the back here, which provide a lot of friction as you're pulling this knife in and out. You've got these plates back here. You got this right here, this here. So it means that even in a Vaseline factory, this is going to be a pretty solid piece in terms of the friction here. I'm a big fan of that. So next thing, finishing work. This is really nicely finished. I mean, look at this, guys. Seriously. Holy crap, you've got the heat coloring on this titanium. You've got this beautiful forged, maybe marbled carbon fiber. I'm never sure which is which. You've got this beautiful logo type here, which I love their logo to start with, but it's just so well done. Got this nice finishing on the side there, complete with, oh man, the clip, you've got that nice little pad in there. The blade is pretty excellent. This is beautifully made. This is an excellently made tool. As good as you expect a custom knife from a high-end maker to be, it is indeed. And by the way, the blade's 20 CV. I don't know that I mentioned that, but that's a beautiful thing as well, because it's one of the best steels in the world. So that's good, at least for knife making. I'm sorry, I should be more clear about that. If you want a submarine, that's probably not your choice. But anyways, there you go. Next thing, this is an out-the-front automatic, and more specifically, it's a double-action out-the-front automatic. What that means is that you pull the button, it can pull the blade back, push the button, push the blade out. These are actually a very good thing for one very specific group of people, and that are people with one arm or with, other things that make it very difficult for them to manipulate a conventional knife. This guy, all you really need to do to use it is move your thumb forward and then pull your thumb back. So even with one arm, this functions just beautifully. And that could mean that you've lost mobility in one arm, or that you're regularly holding something else like a scanner or a tape gun or something like that. This offers you a lot of one-arm flexibility. This is also a double action, and those have one safety advantage that a lot of people don't know about. It looks like this is firing out like freaking crazy, but actually, this is just a piece of paper here, a piece of just plain rhodia paper here, and if I've just got two little sheets bent over here, what you can see is that this blade is actually stopped by the paper in its deployment. Then it goes into this sort of floppy state here. It's very easy to get it back into its normal state, but it goes off the rails very quickly, and that's actually a safety thing. Even if this is right up against your leg or something and it accidentally deploys, which, by the way, it's not going to, given the amount of force you need to deploy this spring. I mean, this is really pushing back against me, and there's a fair amount of travel before I finally go over the edge and fire the blade out. But still, it's got that safety feature, which is nice. Relative to a single action, where you have to pull it back manually, this guy is just going right through. So that's a very different thing, but it's a very nice thing. And then finally, on the good side, this is a knife that is easy to disassemble. If you watch his video, he shows you exactly how to do it, but moreover, he gives you the tools and the grease to maintain it. Now, look, this is not something that should be a difficult thing. This is not something I should be raising. But the thing is, this shows makers of out-the-front automatics that you need not fear your customers and you need not treat them like the enemy. It is the case that very often people in this domain, for whatever reason, are using really stupid screws that try and lock you out of the knife, and that's really, really, really awful. What the Hawks have done here is they've made not only an out-the-front automatic knife that is better than anything else on the market in terms of functionality, we'll talk about that in a second, but is more easy to service than anything else on the market, even relative to like the Benchmade Phaeton that are also using Torx screws. But they've given just a boring Torx screw. They're using the same size hardware over and over and over again. This is absolutely just beautiful. And it's like a love letter from Gavin Hawk to the rest of us saying, holy crap, guys, I like you and I want you to be able to keep this beautiful knife in good condition for a long time. And I am so appreciative of that. That's probably my own unique bias liking that ability. But you know what? It's a good thing to have. This is better designed than a knife that can't be disassembled, at least by the end user. So there you go. Those are the beautiful things about this guy. The tool is included. Out the fronts are great for accessibility. It's got great finishing work, great ergonomics, very good gription overall, a nice clip, and just beautiful grinds on a beautiful steel. What's truly great about this knife, though, is the mechanism. It happens to be the case, and this is, by the way, a terrible out-the-front automatic knife, but it is the case that every automatic knife I've handled in the past has had blade play, where you can shake the blade around. And it's ugly. It feels really, really janky, and I get it. Looking at the mechanism, it's like, oh yeah, I can see how that would happen. It's very well prevented from going back into the blade, or into the handle, but every other dimension of freedom is shaky like crazy. This has been the case for everything I've handled, from the cheapy to the very, very expensive. I've handled $800-900 out the fronts that have this shake, and it just always feels like, guys, why am I paying for this? I get it, it's hard, but still. The Hawks, though, have fixed that. This is using a special ramp in there that basically helps to lock the blade in place, along with some very good precision machining, things like that. And what that means is that this is solid. I'm shaking this, and I feel nothing. This feels, for all intents and purposes, like a solid piece of steel. It is perfect in that way. If there is any blade play, it's so close to zero I can't detect it. And that is incredible. They have, in one fell swoop, managed to make an out-the-front knife that is simply better constructed in this domain than every other out-the-front knife that I've ever handled. And yet, at the same time, is still incredibly smooth. It feels better than any out-the-front I've ever handled. This button pull, forward and backwards, is just, oh my God, incredibly smooth. That's a completely silly thing at some level, but most of them feel grindy and gravelly at some point. This is just like, Yeah, and it's really solid when closed. You shake it around, you feel nothing. Nothing is happening in here except just it being a knife. So I love this mechanism. This is flat out, in terms of the overall fit and finish and just solidity of it, the best out the front knife I've ever handled, and I've handled a lot at a lot of different shows. So there you go. That's what's great here, is the mechanism is incredible. On the bad side, this guy still does have some of the disadvantages of being an out-the-front automatic knife. The biggest of which is that there is no subtle way to open it. It's only going to fire out in its good old-fashioned switchbladey approach, as opposed to your out-the-side knives where you can always come up, grab the blade, and open it like this, and no one's the wiser that it's an auto. It's not a big deal, but especially in the lunchroom, that can be a situation, unless the lunchroom is at cold steel, in which case, no problem. But still, that can be something that can scare some people. Absolutely 100%. And speaking of that, this is a knife that is, to put nicely, super murdery. This is a knife that looks like it's designed to kill vampires. I showed this to the wife. I said, honey, what do you think of this? And this is a woman, by the way, who loves the ZT452, the Shirohati. This gal loves her some murdery knives, but she looked at that one and went, holy crap, that thing's aggro. And indeed it is, with the double-edged dagger blade, with everything. This is a really murdery knife, and so that's going to make it a little scarier than most. Whatever, that's a design choice. And I'm not even criticizing it. That's just the nature of the beast. But it is something to keep in mind, is that this current batch of deadlocks is holy crap murdery. Next thing, it is also very, very expensive. I'm not going to give a precise price because they're probably going to change from batch to batch. That's the nature of the beast. But these are easily north of $1,000, like $1,200, $1,300, depending on the price. And again, it'll probably go up in the future. Who knows? But that's a really expensive thing. That puts this out of range for 99% of the world in all likelihood. 99.99 decimals. It's just a simple fact of life. It's a custom knife made by two of the best knife makers in the world. So, okay, no big complaint there at some level, but it's also very pricey. Keep that in mind. It's also hard to get. Even if you have the money in your pocket, you can't necessarily walk up to Grant and Gavin and say, hey, give me a deadlock. Unless you're a blade show and they've got deadlocks, in which case, have at it. You have to get on lists and wait for batches and drops and things like that. That's a shame, but it is the nature of the beast there. All those things are kind of immaterial, not about the knife, though. Next thing. Oh, by the way, one thing I forgot to mention about this guy is that it is actually ambidextrous. It is fully ambidextrous. The clip does not rotate. But one thing that's a little counterintuitive, but with these out-the-front autos, and especially ones that have the side fire button, it really doesn't matter which side the clip is on. You can put this just as easily into your pocket, in your left pocket here, your right pocket here, and when you grab it out, it's going to be on the side that's right for the thumb, so to speak, or left for the thumb, I guess. So even though this doesn't have a reversible clip, it is still fully ambidextrous. Keep that one in mind. But that's not bad. That's just something I forgot to mention in the good. Whoops. Next thing about this guy, this is not a serialized knife. You can see here they've got Deadlock 2018. I do like dates. G&G Hawk. Yeah, we knew that part. Model B, patent number... okay, whatever, 20 CV. I would really have liked to have seen a unique serial number on this, and especially it beats the heck out of a patent number. Why do I care what the patent number is? Put it inside or something, when you could just put on there that, oh, this is number 14 or something like that. That's a nice little touch, and when you're paying this much money for something, that little bit of extra uniqueness is always something that I think is appreciated. So, not a big deal, but it's a deal. Next thing, this is a dagger-style blade. That means that this is just like extra illegal. This is a dagger-style, two-edged, sharpened, out-the-front automatic pocket knife. The only way that this could be illegal in more places if it were 4.5 inches and made of plutonium. I mean, seriously, this thing, that is a big downside for a lot of these things. I know that there are places in the world where that just doesn't matter, but the number of places that you can carry this are very, very small, and that is one disadvantage to go on the daggery approach. And, but again, that's a design choice, I guess. The only other thing I have to say that's kind of negative about this guy in the bad here is that, I don't tend to prefer these side release out the front automatics. I like them where the button is actually on the top. That loses that ambidextrousness I was just talking about, because then the button has a very specific up-down orientation. But the thing is, there, where you pull it out of your pocket, your thumb is already where the blade needs to be, so you can press that button, you shoot the blade out there, and then you're already in the position that you're going to want to use it in. Whereas with this guy, you actually need to change the position of your hand slightly and rotate this guy in order for it to be able to fire it out and use it. This is one of those accessibility things. It's not a big deal, but it's definitely, personally, having handled both, I prefer where there's the top release on here, so you pull it out of the, but you know, that is what it is, and it's probably more a matter of preference than anything. If you're a fan of this style, let me know down in the comments why, what's doing that for you. But anyway, so those are the bad things to me. I'm not a big fan of the side release out the fronts. I'd much prefer the top release, but that's probably preference. Dagger-style blades make this guy, like, extra super illegal in pretty much everywhere. It is not serialized when I think it could have easily been. Has a, it's hard to get, it is very, very expensive, and it still has all the disadvantages of an out-the-front auto. In terms of the ugly, there is only one ugly thing here, and that is the the use of Comic Sans MS as your font here. Really, guys? Really? It's completely beside the point, but really? Anyways, I digress. As a typography snob, I can't freaking do it. But that's completely immaterial to the knife, and it's still a great piece. So let's go to the final conclusions, where I'll tell you that it's a great piece. In fact, final conclusions, I'll go a step further. This is the very best out-the-front automatic knife I have ever handled. I have tried a lot at a lot of very different shows, and this just wins on like every dimension. It is smoother in this domain than anything I've ever tried. Has a more solid lockup than anything I've ever tried by a mile, because none of them were solid. Everything else just felt like a freaking rattling, no, I can't do it. But this one feels incredible. It has a very nice feeling. It feels great in the hand overall, and you know what? It's probably one of the most attractive, although I do like some of Derek Monroe's designs too. But look, this is just the best out-the-front automatic, frankly, out there. I feel pretty confident in saying that at this point. It's not perfection, though. It is still pricey, hard to get, super illegal pretty much everywhere, really murdery, and I do still prefer the top button approach for my automatics if I'm going to go that route. But the thing is, this is just a wonderful knife, and I feel like I'm really lucky to have gotten the chance to play with one. Because the Hawks have created here something that is really astounding and that is just better. Usually in the pocket knife world, I am chasing little tiny improvements. What's the improvement going from a Spyderco-Delica, or I'm sorry, going from a Rat 2 to a Spyderco-Delica? It's an incremental little jump up here. Yeah, there were some things that are a little bit better. They're nice, but this just feels like that this is how it should have been done. Everything else is how it shouldn't have. I'm totally over-favoring that rattling thing, but that just drives me nuts. It makes all these out-the-fronts just feel super janky and ugly and like put together with tape. I know that they're well-designed tools and they do good work, but that feeling just drives me crazy, and they have fixed it. And so they've gone from having a big problem to having no problems, and God, do I like that. And so the contrast here is incredible. And it feels just as good as I want a high-end custom knife to feel in every other domain as well. The biggest problem that this guy has is just the rarity and the cost. And so what I'd like to see next, what I'm really hoping for next, is to see something like this in a production level. I hope they're able to team up with like a really good high-end maker, which can create a version of this that's like dressed down, even if they just did like a titanium clamshell sort of thing around it, yet still is as functionally excellent, still is disassemblable, etc. That way everybody, or at least the people who want one, could get a Deadlock, because that would be a beautiful thing. To make the excellence of this design more accessible to people outside the custom knife world would be great. But for now, as it is, this guy on the table, the big, pricey, expensive custom, is just an amazing piece. It's continued proof that the Hawks are basically wizards, and it is the very best out-the-front automatic knife I've handled, and likely probably that's ever been made. So anyways, there you go. Well freaking done, Hawks. Really cool knife, and yeah, hope you found this interesting and that you have yourselves an automatically wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.